Hi everybody, Daman Mehta here, and thank you for once again joining me on my journey as I go through my favorites list on fanfiction.net. Um, you should know the deal by now. This is part like 85 or something, so I'm not gonna talk about that. So let's just dive in to some stories and see whether or not they deserve to stay on my list or not. So the first story is False Starts Harry Potter by Diresquirrel. And this is another fun collection of one shots and half baked ideas that didn't go anywhere. And there's a bunch of winners here. It's all Harry Potter based. Uh, I really enjoyed a lot of this story. Like, yes, there might be one or two like things that I didn't care so much about, but the majority of this stuff is fun. I really wish a lot of these would have been expanded into their own stories, but still, very memorable. A lot of these I even had, as I was rereading, they had been sticking in my mind, even though I hadn't reread this particular story in years. I still found them all to be super enjoyable. Tons of fun here. It's going to stay on my list. Uh, Next, we have Kurosaki Ichigo Seireitei Gigolo by Andrew Joshua Talon. Uh, and this is just a fun little series where Ichigo, after the events of Bleach, decides he needs money and needs to get a job and decides to be a gigolo. um, yeah, it's there's a whole lot of sex scenes here that are okay, but really it's the humor of this fic and the joke scenes that I enjoyed a lot more. There isn't really much else, so it's really just if you want to see some bleach flavored smut and some jokes at the expense of Ichigo and like a lot of like art characterization of the women of Seireitei. I enjoyed it a lot. It was just a bit of fun, and the smut is like it's there, but it's not the main drawing point for me, so it's gonna stay on my list. uh, The third one for this video is Superman New Beginnings by Ben with a shit ton of numbers. I don't know. So this is a Justice League story that basically is what if Superman wasn't like the first hero? In this one, like basically because of some issues with his parents, health problems, Superman delays his debut for a few years, and so the Justice League and everything is already formed up with like Wonder Woman, Batman, and Green Lantern as like the main trio now and stuff like that. Uh, it's This story is pretty great. Like it highlights why Superman is so important to the Justice League without ever really explicitly stating it, just showing how the leaders' behaviors are different because Kal-El wasn't there to help morally guide them, and just a lot of stuff is here. Like there's a lot of action and drama as well. Plot wise, there's a lot to be found in this story. It's complete, which really is also always a good benefit. Uh, I just thought this to be a really good story with multiple arcs, lots of like decent amounts of fights and action, and a good mix of who villains are. Like, granted, we don't see many like Superman level villains, but that's because Superman as a symbol or as a name didn't exist. So we see Superman actually duking around with a whole bunch of the other people's villains in interesting ways. So I really just enjoyed this a lot, and it's gonna stay on my list. All right, number 4 for this video is Contract Labor by Greydon Greed. And this is a massive Love Hina story, almost 500k words, that doesn't feel like a Love Hina story at all after the first arc. This is more, so when I say that, this is more personal issue for me, as I don't really read a lot of like super AU fics where things like, oh, it's just like Naruto and Naruto's cast, but they're just in high school, like not a crossover, then just like Naruto in high school or Naruto as like all babies and stuff. Like I don't read those kind of fics. So when I read a fic in a category, there are certain expectations that I have. With Love Hina, the main thing I expect is for the story to be mainly revolving around, like love triangles or love issues or like character interpersonal relationships, and like basically staying confined to um, the characters at the inn, or like one or two interlopers, but mainly that's the main dynamic. This fic feels more like a shonen anime or something, or like Nagima or something, rather than Love Hina, because it starts with a little bit of drama. That's like you have the whole of like the first arc is just him dealing with showing up at the end, but then it very quickly spirals out into a big ass like conspiracy thing with like secret societies, evil evil people going after him, and like freaking mafia people coming from the other side. Like it's just a big disconnect, that just didn't that I couldn't really get past for a lot of the time. Not to say the story is bad. It's very intriguing, and it comes up with a whole bunch of cool ideas for Ki and Shi, and then it turns the Urashima into like this mythical family that knows everybody, and like basically it's like super Godfather style without being the Godfather and stuff, which brings its own drama. However, this leads to a narrowed focus of the cast, and essentially, this instead of being like a character piece or an ensemble piece, this essentially becomes a story of two people. It becomes a story of Keitaro and Sarah. Uh, it's and I mean, Sarah really doesn't step up into the protagonist role until like 50 chapters in, but she, once she does, she grabs the spotlight and doesn't let go. She's like half and half. If you want standard drama Love Hina, you can stop reading this after the first arc, which deals with Motoko and Keitaro's like friction in the house. That's the only part of this that really feels like a traditional Love Hina fic, though it is more of a serious tone than most of them are. After that, though, all the relationship drama and stuff gets thrown out the window, and the other older residents especially, just basically become non-entities, with one being written out entirely. And the younger girls like Sue and Shinobu are basically just Sarah's tools so that she can push her story forward. There's a bunch of interesting ideas and crossover cameos that did keep my catching my interest every now and then, but it never really grabbed my full attention or really gave me a full sense of enjoyment. I think it's still a good story and it's decently written, and there's certainly a lot to chew on, even though it's incomplete. But it's not gonna stay on my list. Right now we got Vulpine by Saffroneth. I'm not sure I pronounced that right. And this one is basically Naruto decides he wants to learn summoning when he's still in like the academy, and just does the summon jutsu without a contract, and ends up going to the fox thing and summoning a fox, and that leads to him being a lot more sociable because he has more friends who would teach him how to act correctly, and helps his team become a whole bunch of super ninja really really quickly. This is very much just an overpowered Team 7 story that really keeps a casual and breezy tone throughout. Has a nice bit of humor to keep things from getting boring, and it's just a fun time. Like, the first chapter is a little bland and the jokes don't really quite land, but as it goes on, it quickly picks up, and a lot of scenes got bursts of laughter out of me. Bonus points for being complete because this is really whole package. I just had a lot of fun with this story. It's just really simple, overpowered stuff where all the characters have ridiculous things and are just casually cleaning house without forward knowledge, though, too. So that's an interesting bit. Um, I liked it. There was enough changes to canon that made it interesting to read, and it's going to stay on my list. Number 6 is The Dark Lords Strike Back by Claymade. And this is a sequel to a story I had completely forgotten about. I had talked about the original on my list, and it did not stay. I couldn't remember anything about it, the initial, and I had to go back through the archive to see what I had rated it. And sure enough, I kicked it off because it was not engaging. And this story isn't even a full sequel. This is for those who don't know, this is a Sailor Moon Ranma crossover, where in the first story, what had happened was one of the Yoma from Sailor Moon, like after a battle, escaped and then ended up with the Narima crew and asked for like protection, and that led to a whole bunch of stuff going on. Uh, and this is not a full sequel. This is more of an interlude between like this is basically a filler arc from one season to the next. Uh, and I just if you didn't like the first one, you're not gonna like this, which was very much for me. And also, if you didn't read the first one, you were going to be completely lost because it does not do the helpful. Not only does a lot of stuff go down here, but it doesn't really there's no recap. It just goes straight on it with no introduction of characters, hardly even any descriptions when characters show up. It's just the names. So if you don't remember the plot or anything, you are forced to just go back and reread everything. Which I understand, at least fan fiction wise, that's not uncommon. I do now have more of an appreciation for why like authors do that, like in the freaking Harry Potter books, why the first chapter was always re-explaining who Harry was and stuff. I kind of get now why they did that, and I appreciate that a lot more. Uh, I can see why it's placed as its own story instead of just being appended to the last one, because the ending of this is a soft reset of the canon, but that does make it impossible for it to stand on its own. There is one long fight scene that is pretty good and involves basically everyone in Sailor Moon and Ranma fighting against the Dark Kingdom and Metalia, but that's really the only thing worth looking at, and it's only gonna have any emotional impact or even any impact if you really like the first story, and I did not, so this is not gonna stay on my list. All right, and the last story for this video is Harry Potter: The Overlord Returns Home, and this is obviously a Harry Potter crossover with Overlord, the video game series. I know Overlord has been overshadowed over the years, over the last 2 years because of the light novel and manga, but there was a video game series before that, which was about just an evil guy running over with a bunch of gremlins. I actually liked that video game a lot. That first one. I never played the second, but it was the first. It's very much dumb humor that pokes fun at a lot of like fantasy cliches, but it also is like about big evil, everybody being evil and doing evil shit. And this one is basically Harry was set up to die at the end of canon, and then ends up in the Overlord's domain and becomes the Overlord for like a decade or so before coming back home. And the story itself it's a mixed bag. Like the story is basically it flips between Harry finding or having sex with girls, like finding more girls to have sex with, and then killing people who betrayed him / doing evil things. And that dichotomy also split how I felt about the story, as I was interested in the bits with the girls, not so much the actual sex scenes, but the interactions with them. Like his interactions with Luna, especially, I found really funny, and Hermione was also interesting, though kind of skeevy. And the evil bits where he's just torturing people and like killing people, like I just found that to be a drag to read through. Not because they were particularly awful or like gratuitous or anything, but I just didn't like seeing Harry do those things. Yeah. I'm call me that. Like I'm one of those people who doesn't enjoy playing the evil option in games that much, because I'm like I feel bad about doing those things, and so I don't want to see my hero do those things. And as there's not really anything else to the story, it's basically Harry just coming back, finding girls through the Harry Potter stuff, Harry Potter canon, to bring into his harem. That also includes a whole bunch of girls from Overlord, and killing anybody like he doesn't like Ron, Snape, Dumbledore, and all so on. You know, it's incomplete, but there's still a large amount of killing and implied fucking with occasional tender moments that you'll be satisfied if that's your thing. Since I really only enjoyed a very small portion of this, it's not going to stay on my list. And there we have it for this video. We got a bunch more stories read, and how fanfiction status time. We have read 581 stories, and 289 of them have stayed on my list. So it's actually coming back up. Like before, it was falling down below 50%. Now it's coming back to the 50% mark. So that's interesting. It seems like I'm getting, as you know, after a decade of reading, not a decade. This was only 6 years after I started, but I guess I started getting better at picking out good ones. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, I will leave links to all of these in the description down below. There's also a link to my fanfiction.net profile if you want to start seeing what's yet to come on my list on these videos. Please leave a like if you like this video. Subscribe if you want to get notified and want to be ready whenever these videos come out, because I don't exactly keep a steady schedule. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.